Captain Daniel Cross had seen many strange things in his years as a deep space pilot, but this was new. His ship, the Starfire, had picked up an unusual signal while passing through an asteroid belt. It was weak, almost lost in the void, but unmistakably coming from an escape pod. Daniel sat in the pilot's seat, staring at the blinking red light on his screen. An unidentified distress signal. He sighed. Rescuing unknown vessels was risky. Pirates sometimes used fake distress calls to lure in victims. Other times, the ship's own government wouldn't like civilians getting involved. But Daniel had always believed that space was too big and dangerous to ignore a cry for help. "All right, let's see who you are," he muttered, adjusting his course. As he neared the escape pod, his ship's scanners fed him information. The pod was not human-made. It was sleek, silver, and shaped like a teardrop, with markings that didn't match any known human languages. The hull was slightly damaged, probably from colliding with debris. Daniel frowned. An alien pod. First contact with aliens wasn't new for humanity, but it was rare. Most alien civilizations preferred to keep their distance. If this pod belonged to one of those secretive races, its owner might be in serious trouble. With careful precision, Daniel activated the Starfire's docking arm, pulling the escape pod into his cargo bay. A few minutes later, he was standing in front of it, armed with his sidearm, just in case. The pod's hatch hissed open. At first, he saw nothing but dim, flickering lights. Then she stepped forward. A tall, slender figure, draped in a smooth, form-fitting suit, emerged from the pod. Her skin was silver, almost metallic, reflecting the soft glow of his ship's lights. Her eyes were violet, glowing faintly, scanning him with curiosity and caution. She was not human, but her features were strikingly similar. 2 arms, 2 legs, a face with delicate, symmetrical lines. Daniel had seen pictures of Velethi before, but he had never expected to meet one face to face. For a moment, they just stared at each other. Then, the alien woman staggered forward, clutching her side. That was when Daniel noticed the dark blue liquid, her blood, staining her suit. She was injured. "Hey, easy there," Daniel said, instinctively stepping forward. The woman flinched but didn't retreat. Her breathing was shallow, and her stance was weak. She was on the edge of collapse. Daniel had 2 choices. He could leave her there, let her recover on her own, or he could help. For him, there was no real choice. He holstered his weapon, took a slow step forward, and raised his hands to show he meant no harm. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said calmly. He didn't know if she could understand him, but he hoped his tone would at least reassure her. The woman's violet eyes flickered between his face and his hands. Then her legs gave out. Daniel caught her before she hit the ground. She was cold, much colder than any human. Her breathing was weak, but she was still conscious, looking up at him with a mixture of exhaustion and something else. Relief. "All right, let's get you patched up," he muttered, lifting her carefully. She was lighter than expected, her body almost weightless in his arms. He carried her to the medical bay, laying her on the examination table. She watched him closely, tense but not resisting. "I don't know what kind of injuries you have," Daniel said, pulling out his first aid kit, "but I'll do my best." She didn't respond, but she didn't stop him either. Daniel took a deep breath. Helping an injured alien could mean trouble, political, legal, and possibly even military trouble. But looking at her now, vulnerable and far from home, he knew he couldn't just leave her to suffer. Whatever happened next, he would deal with it. For now, she needed help, and he was the only one around to give it. The medical bay was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's systems. Captain Daniel Cross moved quickly, gathering supplies from the first aid cabinet. He had treated injuries before, cuts, burns, even a broken arm once, but never on an alien. The silver-skinned woman lay on the medical bed, her violet eyes half open. She was awake but weak, watching him carefully. She still hadn't spoken a single word. Daniel hesitated for a moment. Would human medicine even work on her? He had no way of knowing, but doing nothing wasn't an option. "I'm going to clean the wound," he said slowly, holding up a medical scanner. He didn't know if she could understand him, but he hoped his calm voice would help. The alien woman's gaze flickered to the device in his hand. She didn't move, but she also didn't resist. Daniel activated the scanner and ran it over her side. A holographic display appeared, showing her internal structure. It was strange yet familiar. Bones, muscles, blood vessels, similar to humans, but with key differences. Her body temperature was much lower, and her blood carried higher levels of oxygen. The real problem, however, was clear now. A deep wound near her ribs. Daniel grabbed a sterilized cloth and antiseptic gel. It was a gamble, but it was better than leaving the wound untreated. "This might sting a little," he warned before gently applying the gel. The alien woman tensed, her silver skin rippling slightly, but she didn't cry out. Instead, her glowing eyes locked onto his face, studying him. She was trying to understand him. Daniel worked carefully, cleaning the wound and sealing it with a dermal patch. The medical scanner beeped, confirming that her body was already starting to heal. "There, that should help," he said, stepping back. The alien woman sat up slowly. For a moment, they simply stared at each other. Then, to his surprise, she placed a hand over her chest and bowed her head slightly. Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Is that a thank you?" She didn't respond with words, but her expression softened. She understood. A fragile connection. Now that the immediate danger had passed, Daniel realized something important. Who was she? And why was she in that escape pod? "Can you speak?" he asked carefully. The alien woman tilted her head, as if considering the question. Then she parted her lips and let out a soft, musical sound. Not quite words, but something close. Daniel blinked. "All right, that's something." She tried again, forming a single word. "Sa-ri." Daniel frowned. "Sorry. Is that your name?" She gave a slow nod. "Well, sorry, I'm Daniel." He tapped his chest. "Daniel." Sari watched him for a moment before copying the motion, tapping her own chest. "Sorry." A small smile touched Daniel's lips. They were getting somewhere. Learning from each other. Over the next few hours, Sari remained quiet but observant. Daniel noticed that she watched everything he did. How he moved, how he spoke, even the way he used his hands. She seemed fascinated by human behavior. At one point, Daniel offered her a nutrient bar. He wasn't sure if it was safe for her, but it was the best he could do. Sari took it hesitantly, sniffed it, and then took a small bite. Her violet eyes widened slightly, and she nodded. Daniel chuckled. "Guess that means it's not poison." Sari didn't laugh, but her lips curved slightly in what might have been amusement. Slowly, the tension between them eased. A growing problem. Just as things were starting to feel normal, an alarm beeped on the control panel. Daniel frowned and checked the screen. A ship was approaching. Fast. His stomach tightened. The sensors identified it as a Velethi warship. Daniel glanced at Sari. She had gone completely still, her glowing eyes narrowing. She recognized the ship. "Are they looking for you?" Daniel asked. Sari's expression darkened. She gave a single firm nod. Daniel exhaled. This just got complicated. Whoever these Velethi were, they weren't just passing by. They were hunting. And now, Daniel was caught in the middle. Alarms beeped steadily as the Starfire's sensors locked onto the incoming vessel. A Velethi warship, fast, powerful, and scanning the area. Daniel's grip tightened on the ship's control panel. He had seen images of Velethi warships before. Sleek, silver crafts with energy shields far beyond human technology. They were not the kind of ships you wanted to encounter in deep space. His gaze shifted to Sari. She stood frozen, her violet eyes locked on the screen. shoulders tense. The glow in her irises flickered, a silent sign of fear. "They're looking for you, aren't they?" Daniel asked, keeping his voice calm. Sari hesitated, then gave a small nod. Daniel exhaled. He had a feeling this wasn't just a rescue mission. The way the warship moved, the way it scanned the asteroid belt, this was a search and destroy operation. He didn't know why Sari was running. He didn't know who she was to the Velethi. But he had saved her life, and that meant he wasn't handing her over. "All right," he said, flipping switches on the control panel. "Let's make sure they don't find us." Hiding in the shadows, Daniel quickly activated the ship's stealth dampeners, lowering their energy signature. The Starfire wasn't built for combat, but it was small and fast, perfect for slipping through dangerous situations. Outside, the warship drifted closer, scanning the area. Its hull shimmered like liquid metal, adapting to the surrounding darkness. It was searching carefully, methodically. Daniel's hands moved over the controls. He adjusted the Starfire's position, maneuvering it behind a large asteroid. The ship's engines hummed softly as the autothrusters kept them hidden. Sari watched him, her expression unreadable. "You've been on the run for a while, haven't you?" Daniel asked. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she slowly lifted a hand and placed it over her heart. Her fingers trembled slightly. Then she looked at him and said a single word: "Escape." Daniel's chest tightened. That single word carried so much weight. She wasn't just lost. She was fleeing something. Too close for comfort. A sharp beep from the scanner made Daniel's stomach drop. The warship was adjusting course. It was moving toward them. Daniel held his breath. Had they been detected? Sari's body stiffened, her glowing eyes flickering with panic. "Stay still," Daniel whispered. "Don't move. Don't make a sound." The warship slowed as it neared their hiding place. Daniel's hands hovered over the ship's controls, ready to react. His heart pounded. If they were caught, there would be no negotiating. The Velethi were known for their no-mercy approach to fugitives. Seconds stretched into eternity. The Starfire remained motionless, tucked behind the asteroid's shadow. Then, after what felt like forever, the warship shifted course. Daniel watched as the alien vessel slowly drifted away, its search pattern changing. The scans continued, but they were moving in the opposite direction now. Finally, the red warning light on his panel disappeared. They had made it. Daniel let out a slow breath and turned to Sari. "Looks like they're still searching, but they didn't find us." Sari's shoulders slumped in relief. She closed her eyes for a moment, then gave him another small nod, her way of saying thank you. Daniel studied her carefully. What was she running from? Why were her own people hunting her? He needed answers. The truth begins to surface. After making sure the warship was at a safe distance, Daniel turned back to Sari. "We need to talk," he said firmly. Sari tilted her head, watching him. "You're not just some lost traveler, are you?" he continued. "They're hunting you for a reason. What is it?" Sari hesitated. Then, slowly, she lifted a hand and traced a symbol in the air. A circle, then a jagged line through it. Daniel frowned. "What does that mean?" She looked at him, her violet eyes burning with something deep and unspoken. Then, in a soft, melodic voice, she said, "Danger. War." Daniel's stomach tightened. This wasn't just about her. This was bigger. He had just stepped into something far more dangerous than he had ever imagined. And there was no turning back now. The silence between them stretched. The words, danger, war, still hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Daniel leaned back in his seat, his fingers drumming against the control panel. His ship, the Starfire, floated quietly behind an asteroid, hidden from the Velethi warship still searching nearby. He studied Sari. She sat across from him, her silver skin reflecting the dim cabin lights. Her glowing violet eyes were filled with something that looked like fear. And something else. Determination. "You're not just running," Daniel said finally. You're hiding from something much bigger, aren't you? Sari hesitated, then nodded slowly. Daniel sighed. All right. If I'm risking my neck for you, I need to know why. What exactly are you running from? Sari looked down at her hands, as if choosing her words carefully. Then she pressed a hand over her chest, took a slow breath, and spoke. Rebellion. Daniel's eyes narrowed. You're a rebel. Sari shook her head. Not rebel. They call me traitor. Daniel leaned forward. Why? Sari hesitated again. Then she raised her hand and traced the same symbol in the air, a circle with a jagged line through it. Velethi. War, she said slowly. They want power. They take, destroy. My people, not all agree. Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. He had heard rumors about the Velethi. They were advanced, powerful, and secretive. Humanity had little contact with them. But some reports claimed they were expanding their reach, taking control of weaker species and absorbing them into their empire. Sari met his gaze. I did not want war. I stopped them. Daniel frowned. You tried to stop them. How? Sari clenched her fists. I work in high place. I find secret. Velethi. Plan attack. Plan. Invasion. Daniel's breath caught. An invasion. Wait, he said, sitting up straighter. Are you saying your people are planning to invade another civilization? Sari nodded. Yes. Soon. Daniel's pulse quickened. This was huge. And you tried to stop it? He asked. Sari exhaled, her expression darkening. I give message. Secret. To enemy. They now know. Daniel stared at her. You warned the enemy. Sari gave a slow, small nod. Now it made sense. She wasn't just a fugitive. She was a whistleblower, a traitor to her own people. No wonder the Velethi were hunting her. A dangerous choice. Daniel rubbed his temples. This was a mess. A big one. If what Sari said was true, a war was about to begin. And she had made herself the enemy of one of the most powerful species in the galaxy. And now, he was caught in the middle. Daniel glanced at the radar. The Velethi warship was still searching, but moving farther away. For now, they were safe. He turned back to Sari. So what's your plan? Where are you going? Sari hesitated. Then she shook her head. No place. Nowhere safe. Daniel sighed. Of course. If the Velethi were hunting her, she had nowhere to run. If another species helped her, it could spark a war even faster. She was completely alone. Daniel tapped his fingers against the panel, thinking. He could leave her at the next station. Forget about all of this. But deep down, he knew he wouldn't. He had saved her life. He had hidden her from the Velethi. And now he knew the truth. Letting her go alone wasn't just abandoning her. It was ignoring the coming war. Finally, he sighed. All right. I have a contact. Someone who might help. Sari looked up, hope flickering in her eyes. Help. Daniel nodded. A friend of mine. Ex-military. Works with people who don't want to be found. He might be able to hide you. Sari studied him, as if searching for any sign of betrayal. But all she found was determination. Finally, she gave a small nod. I trust. Daniel smirked. Let's hope that's not a mistake. He turned to the controls, preparing to set a new course. The Starfire's engines hummed to life. They were no longer just running. They were heading towards something much bigger. Something that could change everything. Daniel adjusted the Starfire's flight path, his fingers moving quickly over the controls. The engines hummed softly, keeping their presence low. He stole a glance at Sari. Her glowing violet eyes were locked on the radar screen, watching the Velethi warship drift farther away. For now, they were safe. But not for long. We need to move, Daniel said, powering up the thrusters. I have a contact at a hidden station, but it's 2 jumps away. If the Velethi are tracking you, they'll be watching all the usual routes. Sari nodded, understanding. Danger. Daniel gave a humorless chuckle. Yeah, danger. But if we do this right, we'll slip past them. The ship's engines warmed up, ready for the first jump. The route Daniel had picked wasn't the safest, but it was unexpected. They would cut through an uncharted nebula. A risky move, but one that might keep them hidden. He turned to Sari. You ever been through a plasma storm? Sari tilted her head. Storm. Daniel sighed. Great, you're in for a ride. With a deep breath, he pulled the lever. The stars stretched as the Starfire shot forward, disappearing into the void. Into the storm. The first jump was smooth. They arrived just outside the nebula, its glowing blue mist swirling ahead like a living thing. Lightning crackled inside, sending pulses of energy through the cloud. Daniel's jaw tightened. Plasma storms were unpredictable. Shields could weaken, systems could fail. But the Velethi wouldn't dare follow them inside. Not if they had any sense. Sari studied the nebula, her expression calm. Beautiful. Daniel chuckled. That's one way to look at it. He guided the Starfire into the storm. Almost instantly, the ship shuddered as plasma waves lashed against the hull. The lights flickered, and the control panel beeped warnings. Shields holding, Daniel muttered. For now. Sari placed a hand on the console. You? Do this before. Daniel smirked. A few times. Let's hope I haven't lost my touch. A sudden blast of energy rocked the ship. The alarms wailed as the Starfire spun slightly off course. Daniel gritted his teeth, gripping the controls tightly. Hold on, he shouted. Sari gripped the edge of her seat but didn't panic. Instead, she watched him, trusting him. Daniel fought the turbulence, adjusting the thrusters carefully. Almost through, he muttered. A final shockwave hit them just as they reached the other side. The ship lurched, but then silence. The Starfire drifted out of the storm, the nebula's glow fading behind them. The sensors cleared, showing no sign of pursuit. Daniel exhaled. We made it. Sari looked at him with quiet admiration. You? Skilled. Daniel grinned. I try. A dangerous signal. The moment of victory didn't last long. A sharp beep from the control panel made Daniel's stomach drop. He checked the screen, his expression darkening. An unidentified signal. Nearby. Sari frowned. Velethi? Daniel studied the readings. I don't think so. It's weak. Almost like a distress call. Sari's expression shifted. Someone. Need help. Daniel hesitated. Stopping was a risk. They needed to get to the safe station, but ignoring a distress signal never sat right with him. He sighed. Let's check it out. Adjusting course, he guided the Starfire toward the signal's location. Within minutes, a small ship came into view, damaged, drifting. Looks like an old trader vessel, Daniel muttered. Minimal weapons. Probably attacked. Sari narrowed her eyes. Trap. Daniel considered it. Pirates sometimes used fake distress signals to lure in ships, but his gut told him this was real. I'll be careful, he assured her. Activating the comms, he sent a message. This is Captain Daniel Cross of the Starfire. Do you need assistance? Static. Then, a weak voice crackled through. Hello. Please, we're stranded. We were attacked. Engines failing. Daniel's jaw tightened. They were barely holding on. Sari met his gaze. We help. Daniel exhaled. He knew stopping could slow them down, but he couldn't just leave them to die. Yeah, he said, setting course. We help. As the Starfire approached the stranded vessel, a strange feeling settled in Daniel's gut. Something about this felt too easy. And in deep space, nothing was ever that simple. Daniel guided the Starfire closer to the damaged vessel, his grip firm on the controls. The ship drifted aimlessly, its hull scorched, flickering lights barely holding on. It had clearly been through a battle. Sari watched silently, her glowing eyes filled with caution. Daniel activated the comms again. "This is Captain Daniel Cross. We're here to assist. How many survivors?" Static crackled. Then, a weak voice responded. 3, engines dead. Life support failing." Daniel's jaw tightened. He scanned the ship again. No weapons, no shields, no sign of a trap. But still, something felt wrong. "We need to be careful," he muttered. Sari nodded. "I go with you." Daniel hesitated. Bringing her onto a strange ship was risky. But she wasn't helpless. And if this was a setup, she might sense something before he did. He grabbed his blaster, just in case. "All right," he said. "Let's move." Aboard the ghost ship, the Starfire's airlock connected with the other ship. The doors hissed open, revealing a dimly lit corridor. The air smelled of burned metal and smoke. Sparks flickered from broken wires. Sari stepped forward carefully, her silver skin glowing faintly in the darkness. Daniel followed, scanning for any signs of movement. Then, a sound. A low cough from deeper inside. Daniel turned a corner and spotted 3 figures slumped against the wall. Their uniforms were torn, their faces pale. 2 were unconscious. The third, a woman with short black hair, looked up weakly. "You came," she rasped. Daniel kneeled beside her. "What happened?" The woman swallowed. "Pirates. Attacked. Took our cargo. Left us to die." Daniel frowned. Pirates were common in the outer sectors, but something still felt off. Sari stepped forward, staring at the woman. Then softly, she whispered, "Lying." Daniel stiffened. He turned back to the survivor. "What did you say your cargo was?" The woman hesitated. Then, too late, her hand moved. The ambush. Daniel's reflexes kicked in. He grabbed Sari and dived aside as a hidden blaster fired from the woman's sleeve. Bang! The shot missed by inches, scorching the wall behind them. Daniel rolled, aiming his own weapon. "Drop it," he shouted. The woman's weak act vanished. She stood up, too fast for someone injured. The other 2 survivors did the same. It was a trap. Sari hissed, stepping into a defensive stance. Her violet eyes flared. The woman smirked. "You shouldn't have stopped, Captain." Daniel gritted his teeth. "Who are you working for?" The woman's smirk widened. "The Velethi." Daniel's stomach dropped. They knew. They knew about Sari. The woman aimed her blaster again, but Daniel was faster. He fired first. The shot hit her shoulder, sending her stumbling back. The other 2 lunged, drawing weapons, but Sari moved like lightning. She dodged the first attack, spun, and struck the nearest attacker with a sharp elbow to the jaw. The man crumpled. The last attacker raised a knife, but before he could strike, Sari's hand shot out, touching his forehead. A strange pulse of energy surged through her fingertips. The man's eyes rolled back, and he collapsed unconscious. Daniel stared. "Remind me never to fight you." Sari breathed heavily, but didn't smile. She turned to the wounded woman. "More coming." Daniel's stomach clenched. "How many?" Sari closed her eyes for a second. Then, "Warship. Close." Daniel's pulse quickened. The Velethi had tracked them. A desperate escape. "We have to move. Now." Daniel grabbed his comm. "Starfire, prep emergency takeoff." Alarms blared as they rushed back through the corridor. Behind them, the woman on the floor laughed weakly. "You can't run," she taunted. "They'll find you. They'll never stop." Daniel ignored her and ran. The Starfire's airlock opened just as they reached it. They jumped inside, sealing the doors behind them. Daniel raced to the cockpit, fingers flying over controls. Outside, the nebula's glow reflected against the hull of a Velethi warship, closing in fast. Sari gripped the seat. "Can we escape?" Daniel's hands slammed the thrusters to full power. The Starfire lurched forward, breaking away just as the first Velethi energy blasts fired. "Hold on," Daniel shouted. The ship spun, dodging incoming fire. The engines burned hot. If they didn't jump soon, they were finished. Sari suddenly reached out, placing her hand over the control panel. A soft hum filled the cockpit. The ship's lights flickered. The engine pulse changed, smoother, stronger. Daniel's eyes widened. "What did you?" "Jump now," Sari said. Daniel didn't question it. He pulled the lever. The stars stretched, and the starfire vanished into the void. Nowhere left to run. The ship emerged far from the battle. The Velethi were gone. For now. Daniel leaned back, exhaling. That was too close. Sari looked at him, her expression serious. "They know now." Daniel nodded. Their secret was out. The Velethi weren't just hunting Sari anymore. Now, they were hunting him too. The starfire drifted through the quiet void of space. The blue glow of the nebula was now far behind them, and for the first time in hours, there were no enemy signals on the radar. Daniel exhaled slowly, his fingers finally loosening from the flight controls. His heart still pounded from the escape. Sari sat across from him, her violet eyes unreadable. The cabin was silent, except for the soft hum of the ship. "They will not stop," she said finally. Daniel nodded. He knew that. The Velethi now saw him as an enemy. They wouldn't just forget. "We can't keep running forever," he admitted. Sari hesitated. Then she placed a hand over her chest, the same gesture she had done before. "I have a way." Daniel frowned. "A way to do what?" Sari met his gaze. "To stop them." His brow furrowed. "You mean, stop them from chasing you?" Sari shook her head. "No. Stop. All of it. War. Expansion. Destruction." Daniel stared at her. Was that even possible? The Velethi Empire was vast, powerful. A single person couldn't stop them. "Sari," he said carefully. "How?" Sari took a deep breath. Then she pulled something small from her belt, a metallic disc about the size of Daniel's palm. It glowed faintly with alien symbols. Daniel leaned forward. "What is that?" Sari's fingers curled around it protectively. "Truth. The key to peace." Sari held up the disc. Inside, records, secret ones. Daniel's eyes narrowed. "Secret records." She nodded. "Proof. Velethi Council. They lie. They make war seem necessary. Tell people it is for survival. But here," she tapped the disc. "Truth. They do not need war. They choose it." Daniel's pulse quickened. If what she was saying was true, this could change everything, he whispered. Sari nodded. "If this reaches the right people, Velethi people, humans, others, maybe they fight no more." Daniel leaned back, running a hand through his hair. The weight of it all hit him. If they exposed this information, the Velethi government would lose control. The people might revolt. Their enemies might unite. The war could end before it even began. But there was one problem. "Sari," he said, "they'll do everything to stop this from getting out. We don't even know who we can trust." Sari was silent for a moment. Then, softly, she said, "I trust you." Daniel's breath caught. For days, she had been running, hiding, alone. And now she was placing everything. Asterisk, asterisk, her life, her mission, her hope. Asterisk, asterisk, in his hands. He exhaled sharply. "All right, then let's do this." The final gamble. Daniel set a new course. There was only one place they could go, a hidden human outpost known for breaking secrets. The Starfire's engines flared as they sped toward it. But as they neared the station, an alarm blared. Daniel's stomach dropped. A ship was approaching. Fast. He checked the screen. His hands clenched. "Velethi." "They found us," he muttered. Sari's expression remained calm, but her fingers tightened around the disc. "We can't fight them," Daniel said. Not in open space. Sari looked at him. Then, we must finish mission. No matter what. Daniel gritted his teeth. She was right. He slammed the thrusters to full power, racing toward the station. The enemy ship fired. Energy blasts streaked past them. The hull shook violently. We won't make it like this, Daniel growled. Sari looked down at the disk. Then, without warning, she pressed a hidden switch. A soft pulse of energy radiated from it. Daniel blinked. What did you? Sari turned to him, eyes glowing brighter than ever. Signal sent. Daniel's breath caught. She had already uploaded the data. The truth was out. A new beginning. The Velithi warship suddenly stopped its attack. Daniel frowned, checking the scanners. The enemy was just hovering, waiting. Then, his comm pinged. A deep alien voice filled the cockpit. This is Commander Rethan of the Velithi fleet. Your ship is no longer a target. Daniel exchanged a glance with Sari. What? The voice continued. The Council has been exposed. There is division within our people. Many refuse to follow their rule now. Sari exhaled, her shoulders relaxing. Daniel smirked. It worked. The truth had reached the people. The war might not even begin. The Velithi ship slowly turned and disappeared into the void. For the first time since this all began, the chase was over. The gift. As the station came into view, Daniel let out a long breath. He turned to Sari. So, what now? Sari was silent for a moment. Then she smiled. She held out the disc to him. Daniel frowned. What's this? Sari's eyes softened. Gift. Daniel hesitated. But you don't need it anymore. Sari nodded. I trust you. If truth is ever needed again, you keep it. Daniel took the disc, feeling the weight of what it meant. He looked at her. What about you? Sari stood, stretching. I go find new life. No more running. Daniel smirked. You'll be all right. Sari smiled. I have hope. Daniel chuckled. Yeah, me too. As the Starfire docked at the station, he knew one thing for certain. The universe had changed that day. And maybe, just maybe, it had changed for the better. The end.